Today, coexisting in your relationships. If you want an extraordinary relationship, start right here. The truth about connection, growth, and sometimes letting go. Hi, I'm Barbie Ladeveze, a passionate relationship strategist who spent nearly 2 decades helping ambitious individuals and couples navigate their most intimate, painful, and powerful moments inside and outside of the courtroom. I've witnessed thousands of breakups, some devastating, others quite liberating. And what I've learned from both my personal journey and my professional expertise is this: a thriving relationship isn't built on love alone. It's built on intention, connection, and a willingness to grow together, even when the story is hard. Today, I'm not giving you the usual top 5 communication tips, so to speak, that I always do. Nope, we're going deeper. My goal is to stretch you, to get you to stop settling for average and start building love that feels like coming home. So, if you're ready to create a relationship that survives the test of time and actually gets better with age, today I will be sharing 6 profound insights. So let's dive into it. Number 1, your relationship is a mirror, not a cure. Every healthy connection reflects where you are emotionally, spiritually, and certainly mentally. If you enter relationships hoping they will fix you, it won't, but it will show you exactly where you are still bleeding. So instead of asking, will they love me? Ask, do I love myself enough to stop hiding my wounds? Think about that. Here's a profound insight for you. Connection leads to love. Here's the truth bomb. Relationships rarely end because of lack of love. They end because someone stopped feeling seen, heard, or understood. I've sat across from many in the courtroom crying, saying, "Oh, but I still love them." And I've had to gently say and tap them, "But do you feel connected?" Because love without connection is just affection without direction. Here's a profound quote that has always stuck with me, and this one is with George Bernard Shaw. He says, "The single biggest problem in communication is the illusion that it has taken place." Is a masterclass in truth when it comes to relationships, leadership, parenting, and just being human. Here's what it really means. In plain terms, people often think they've communicated, but in reality, they've only have spoken. They assume the other person understood, heard, and absorbed what they meant, but no confirmation, no feedback, and no emotional engagement happened. So what do you think follows? The typical misunderstanding, resentment, and disconnection. What does it teach us when we communicate like this? That communication isn't just about saying something clearly. It's about making sure the message is received, understood, and felt. This reminds us to interact and ask, did that make sense to you? As if you are confirming that they got the message. And you check in. What did you hear me say? You want to be understood and leave no room for interpretation. Clarify. This matters to me. Can we pause to reflect on it together? Let me tell you a little something about relationships. They can say, "I love you," every day and still feel oceans apart if your partner doesn't feel seen, doesn't feel emotionally safe, or doesn't feel like their voice matters. Words, my friends, are not enough. Meaning is what matters. The bottom line is that the illusion of communication is way much more dangerous than silence. Because at least with silence, you know you're missing something. But with illusion, you are faced to assume connection when there is none. Think about this. I thought I would share a personal moment with you. There was this time in my own marriage, yes, a committed one, when I realized I was no longer connected. And not because I didn't love him, but because I was outgrowing the version of myself that tolerated feeling emotionally invisible. I remember sitting on the edge of our bed. He was next to me, but emotionally, I knew we were major galaxies away. I recall vividly that one night when I whispered something to myself. You're not here to shrink into someone else's life story. You're here to write your own. And my friends, that night, I knew it was time to let go with love. I want you to think about this because we are oftentimes nudged and we just ignore those promptings. You may be currently experiencing something very similar. I have people often reaching out to me because they feel just like I did, disconnected in their marriage, and are trying everything imaginable to extend them some grace, which, by the way, we should. However, you must also consider your happiness. At what cost are you willing to manage a relationship where there is no reciprocation? And I speak about this an awful lot. Where you feel like you're just existing, perhaps you do it for the kids. But at what cost are you going to do this? I know well that there is no perfect marriage and that issues come up that strain relationships. And the reality is that relationships, news alert, take effort. There is no easy fix, and why I believe that you both must be aligned in values. Love fades, but values, those you hold sacred, that are the very core of who you are and they are. They dictate an awful lot if you will have a fruitful, lasting marriage. So, today, I am offering advice that is profoundly touching to me because I've seen more heartbreak than I had hope to ever in a lifetime witness. Which leads me to 3. Just because their chapter ends doesn't mean your story does. One of the most powerful lessons heartbreak taught me is this. Just because someone's part in your story has ended doesn't mean your story is over. In fact, it's often just beginning. We grieve not just the person, but who we were with them. And that is okay, because growth always requires, sadly, some level of grief. And it is through that grief that we grow spiritually, evolving into a rich soul who understands better the next go-round, who asks better questions and listens better in our next introduction and encounter. When a door closes, a new one opens, sometimes sooner than expected and others perhaps a little slower. Nonetheless, I always recommend that you take your time, get to know you before jumping into the next relationship. Be selective. raise your standards. Alternatively, you will find yourself repeating the same patterns that ultimately loops you around and you don't expand spiritually. You may have heard the phrase, patience is a virtue. It means, for those who really do not understand what that means, is that patience is a highly valuable quality of character, one that reflects inner strength, maturity, and self-control. It suggests that the ability to wait calmly without being frustrated, feeling any sense of pressure, or impulsiveness is not just an admirable trait, it's a wise action on your part. If I were to break this down for you, virtue, my friends, is morally, it's an excellent quality to possess, much like kindness, humility, and having courage. Patience, on the other hand, it's the ability to tolerate delay, hardship, or discomfort without becoming angry, anxious, or reactive to something. So, when someone says patience is a virtue, they're praising the ability to stay steady, most especially when things don't go their way or not as fast as you had hoped. Why, you may ask, is this considered a virtue? Because most people struggle with it. We live in a world wired for instant gratification, quick fixes, and fast answers. We want it now. But real growth, deep love, healing, and success, they will require your time and patience, which is a muscle that carries you through the seasons when you are waiting without losing that grace, that hope, and that direction. In relationships, patience means giving your partner a little room to grow, not reacting impulsively in conflict or anger, allowing space for healing after a mistake and saying we are sorry. Understanding that connection deepens over time, not overnight. Think of patience like planting a seed. You don't dig it up every day to see if it's actually growing. You trust the process. You water it, you give it a little bit of light, and let it work its magic. The bottom line here, as I want you to think of, is patience doesn't mean passivity. You're not just being lazy. You are not acting like you don't care. It means the power under control that you possess to be able to gauge for yourself and control your impulsivity, because we all have it. We all want things rather quickly. It's knowing that your response, not your reaction, is what defines your inner strength. So, if this is speaking to your soul, please don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe for more weekly wisdom and fresh truths. Because, let's face it, your feed needs a little less noise and a lot more soul. And hey, relationship breakthroughs don't need to be heavy. Here's something light I want you to consider. You know, it's time to leave when your partner says, "We need to talk," and you grab your keys instead of a chair. Okay, don't do that, but you get my point. 4, honor the person. Release the patterns. Just because they were good to you once doesn't mean they're meant to stay forever. It is so difficult to let go, isn't it? Sometimes we must do it. It takes wisdom to love someone and still walk away, because you've outgrown the dynamic, not the person. We can always love them from afar. There's no need to villainize them or belittle them. When you know what you must do. Don't belabor, because doing so will only regress you. But be certain to learn the lesson without resentment towards them. This is a toxic pattern many undergoing divorce experience, oftentimes because they retain an attorney hired to get them through the process and get paid. They are not here to comfort you. There is always something to be learned from our relationships that enrich us as individuals, and you must recognize that you too matter. There is a need to prioritize your growth, which is where the magic begins. Trust it. 5. Small moments build big, huge bridges. There is a shallow misconception some men have that lead them to believe, don't take this personal, that the more they go out of their way to do or spend, the more they will be liked and accepted. I understand well how you are wired. However, real connection isn't built on grand romantic gestures. It's built in the small, ordinary moments, asking real questions, listening without fixing. I know you guys want to fix everything, but think about it and noticing their silence and saying, I'm here. Go ahead and say the hard stuff. Not confrontational, but very matter of fact. Love, we know, does not thrive where there is perfection. It thrives where there is your presence. I know men want to be good providers for their families, but it can end up costing their marriage when they are always away from their family. There must be time to engage, to date one another, to help one another, to encourage that growth, whether it's physically, mentally, or spiritually. The relationship must be stimulated. And if you have children, they too require the love, affection, and presence. So be certain to engage, set priorities and boundaries, communicate effectively without reservation, and be as open to give as to receive. Number 6, as we said earlier, sometimes the lesson is to let go. Some relationships are sacred but temporary. They're teachers, not lifers. And your job isn't to cling, but to learn, honor, and evolve. If you find yourself in a loveless relationship, I caution you to reevaluate carefully your circumstances. If you've outgrown them and deep down know nothing will improve, perhaps it's time to know that although it may be initially be very difficult to let go, you will find a brighter future for yourself. No one defines you. No one can fill the emptiness you may be experiencing other than by taking intentional actions towards your future. Remember, you are not failing if you leave something that no longer reflects your higher self. You are awakening. I want to leave you with a few final thoughts and heartfelt invitation to consider. So to anyone out there mourning a disconnect, questioning if love is enough, wondering if it's time to stay or go, let me remind you, you are not created for half-hearted love. You were made for something extraordinary. And that begins when you decide that you will not settle for less than real connection. If this episode spoke to you, don't just watch, act. Get your copy of my best-selling book, Relationships Never Settle, which is available now on Amazon.com, because I promise you, the answers are not only in your heart, they're also in the questions that you've never been taught to ask, and I'll help you ask them. I'm Barbie Ladeveze, your relationship strategist, and I'll see you in the next episode. Until then, Please don't settle. Rise and raise your standards. See you guys on the bright side.